not sure if you guys are aware that there's a Mayor Pete documentary coming out.
I have been made aware of this because I've gotten a reputation for watching bad stuff online because of all the bad stuff I watch.
Because of your actions. Yeah. Right. Understandable. So we're gonna watch the trailer, but I just want to point out, if you're watching this as a hate watcher, like maybe Brandon will, maybe not, or somebody out there, just put out in social media that you are watching it as a hate watcher, because I jokingly said on Twitter the other day that Amazon's going to sell their metadata to the CIA for who's watching this, because, like, you know, true believers in American empire. And if you're a Mayor Pete,
quiet Americans.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Mayor Pete fan, you're sus, right? But for the American government, you're like perfect soldier, because you totally ate up that propaganda, hook, line, and sinker. Let's see if there's anything to glean from this this documentary here. I don't think I will be hate watching it because I don't hate myself.
You want to make sure that I ask him.
You spent so much of your life hiding who you truly were. Did you feel like you were able to be your true self on the campaign trail?
No.
A hometown boy who went to Harvard and became a Rhodes Scholar, only to return to the city where he grew up.
He's also a newlywed.
I made Pete promise that we would have fun.
This is the only chance you'll ever get to vote for a Maltese-American left-handed Episcopalian gay war veteran Mayor Melendez.
It's a leap going from being a mayor to being a presidential candidate. But I realized I had something to offer that was just different. When I talked about coming out, that was for everybody who's tried to figure out how to be who they are. The challenge, of course, is how do you master the game without it changing you?
A developing story. One candidate is dealing with a crisis back home.
There had been an officer-involved shooting.
Get them off the streets!
You looked a little too green, like you weren't ready. Are you saying things that project the right kind of warmth? Are you connecting with people?
My way of coming at the world, the stronger an emotion is, the more private it is.
I've never met someone who thinks so deeply about what he can do for other people.
You're gonna tell every single gay kid in this country that it gets better.
You're looking at someone who, as a young man, wondered if something deep inside of him meant that he would forever be an outsider. And now you are looking at that same young man, happily married.
Are they like modulating his
asking
voice
for your vote for president of the United States?
Just to let you know, there is a cow in the audience.
Do we know whose side the cow is on?
There's a lot at stake.
Oh my God.
It's so manufactured. Like, there's not one. I am not delegitimizing the fact that for a lot of gay kids, it's amazing to see a gay presidential candidate like this. That is important. Everything else is bullshit. Like, the idea that he was offering anything substantively new to the public is ridiculous. And, like, I just balk at these kinds of hagiographies, these documentaries that clearly have final approval from the candidates themselves. I'm like, we're gonna have this revisionist history that this campaign was something to write home about. This campaign was an entirely manufactured moment in history where he, by the way, he peaked early in Iowa because he only appealed to white people, because as they gloss over in that trailer, and I'm sure they're looking at it from the perspective of Pete, which is not the right perspective to look at the fact that he fired this black police chief and helped cover up these instances of racism in South Bend. Like, he was a white, privileged, wealthy Harvard candidate who fixed bread prices at McKinsey. There's nothing trailblazing about what he did except for that one important but narrow part of what he offered to the world.
I mean,
it was kind of. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I wouldn't watch it because, like, I think it overstates the importance of Mayor Pete to that entire situation. You know, like, I was there. Like, I mean, it's fine if Pete was impactful to you and you want to see his point of view. I mean, it's weird, you know. Again, Mayor Pete's entire like backstory is manufactured to make fit like a resume. That, you know, he joined the military in his late 20s to like basically be you know, officer so he could like run for mayor to eventually run for president. Like, all of this stuff was like a PR campaign. So to watch a movie about it from his point of view is a little like, okay, well, you might as well just watch a campaign commercial. But like, I just can't help but compare it to like Game Change, the HBO docudrama about like Sarah Palin. And it's just like, yeah, that makes sense because like, you know, she had an overly important role in the 2008 election, especially on the McCain campaign trail and in the media. Like, Mayor Pete was kind of always struggling for relevance.
He never contributed anything like she did. She was an important one. She's not she's not the subject and probably having the final say. I mean, this is the equivalent of like the Justin Bieber documentary or the One Direction documentary. Like,
yeah, it's like a concert tour follow.
Exactly.
Like Billie Eilish. Like, he didn't like, what impact has Mayor Pete had after the election, which basically just happened?
And I have resentment for this because, as you mentioned, his entire campaign was like a way to promote himself, right? As was his military service. This is just serving as a function to artificially inflate his importance to that election, which was zilch, nothing. He contributed nothing important to that election except for like...
He was a stalking horse for the establishment.
Yes.
I mean, but there are a lot of people who ran in that election. Do they all get documentaries about themselves? I think they should.
I would see the Klobuchar one.
I would watch the Delaney one. Oh, yeah. In fact, I was thinking that after I watched the Pete one, I was like, for Pete's documentary to in no way include Amy Klobuchar is a miscarriage of justice, because that was Amy Klobuchar's, you know, only redeeming feature, that she kind of disliked Pete Buttigieg with a visceral.
It continues to this day, like with him as transportation secretary. They still go at it, which I adore.
Team
Amy.
I like the head nod toward the sort of race issues going on in South Bend. Just to recap, and Jonathan Larson, TYT, has done really, really great reporting on this, but Pete fired the city's first black police chief for making tapes of racist insubordination. One racist cop on tape later ran for sheriff with a loan backed by 3 guys. 1, his own lawyer in suppressing the tapes. 2, Pete's special counsel regarding those tapes. And 3, Pete's longtime patron, a guy named Urbanski, who you might want to search, but Buttigieg Urbanski, who's a big donor of Pete's. So I actually might watch just to see how exactly they do deal with that. If it's just like, Pete, you got to speak the right words better to these folks and make them seem less angry. Like, I'm curious how they actually deal with that.
I mean, they already, presented it as something that was like all about him. Like, oh, he was dealing with a crisis. It was his crisis. The tragedy is of what it did to Pete during this time, not, the idea that there was this cover up and, someone was shot, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot there. It's just like, to me, again, we'll never know if he was a CIA plant. Maybe, but like, this doesn't help that dispelling that case.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's a establishment figure, and he should be understood as such. And like, people that want to just blindly applaud that stuff, like I don't think he's a good role model for young gay kids. Honestly, like I don't think that's a positive message. Just like I don't think Colin Powell was Jamal Bowman said, good for black kids to find their place in the world. I think these are actually terrible examples. And when they cynically use the identity, like Pete did that litany of, I'm a left-handed vet, gay guy, right? Like that's really, I think, damaging over the long term.